Hello, Archie Luxury channel. I'm just going for a walk there. I'm de-stressing. I've been studying the Razzle Dazzle Basel World releases all last night. I haven't even had time for a shave. I've just I got my sleeping shirt on, and I've just come out just being a little bit of de-stressing because it's been very stressful. I've been studying the Basel World releases, and whew, I tell you what, they've had some very interesting developments. It's amazing what's happened. It's really quite amazing. We've got Rolex. Rolex has released a two-tone Sky Dweller. I mean, can you imagine that? What is that? A two-tone Sky Dweller. And that means, you know, they've got a lot of Sky Dweller movements that haven't sold, so they're releasing it in a more affordable form. The other interesting thing is that Rolex has continued to move the sizes smaller. That's right, the sizes, because I've been saying it for a long time now, that craze for huge wristwatches was a mistake, and they're moving back in size. That's what's happening. They are moving back in size. We've already seen this happen with the Rolex Day-Date 2. Day-Date 2 has become Day-Date 40. Datejust 2, they've now released a 41 mil. So it's moving back in size. And we've also seen the female lineup. The female lineup has changed as well. We've now got Rolex ladies 28 mil. And I gotta tell you, I think that might be the perfect sizing, 28 mil for a lady's watch, because I always thought mid-size around the 30 mark was far too big. 26 mil, okay, that's okay if you're a petite Asian woman, but you know, all the hormones in the chicken, people are getting fatter, they're bigger. So maybe a little bit bigger, but smaller than 30. And the problem is, if it's 30 mil, all that's going to happen is people are going to buy second hand, they're going to buy used, and that doesn't make Rolex any money. No. Rolex wants you to buy new watches. So they release a different size, which is, that's okay, 28 mil, which I think is probably about right, you know, in modern times, because if we go back to the 90s, pieces probably were a bit small. They were a bit small, and I gotta tell you, I think the 28 mil might be the sweet spot. Rolex has done quite a lot of interesting things there at Basel World this year. And you got to remember, the whole watch industry is in slump. Okay, now don't believe any of the bullshit, the hype that other fuckers are saying out there. It is very things are quite difficult. We've had economic troubles in China. China's had anti-corruption laws which have really hurt the watch industry. So China as a growth market is in trouble. We've had the Obama administration booted out. Obama's been booted out. We've got Trump. We've got a lot of economic uncertainty. And when this happens, the sales of high-end consumer goods does tend to suffer. So for the Swiss itself there, it's a very tough time. The other disaster with the Swiss is that the Swiss franc. See, they don't use the euro. No, they use the Swiss franc. That currency has gone against them. The strength of the Swiss franc has worked really badly against them. It's made their goods quite expensive. So there's been a number of hurdles for the Swiss industry to face. Other interesting things, when we look at some other makers there, so Rolex has done some quite interesting things. I'm going to be releasing video on each of these big brands. Rolex has done, I never would have imagined a two-tone Sky Dweller. That tells me they made a lot of these movements, because often they will make a batch of movements. Sales are disappointing, and they want to clear them by bringing them down in the price point. So that's not a sign of good times. The other thing that's, we look at Patek Philippe, and looking at Patek always releases some, grand complications. These are utterly unattainable. But one thing I noticed with Patek Philippe, they're really pushing that the 5396. That's their annual calendar, and instead of it having little eyes with markers, it's got a window display that tells you the day, the date, etc. And that's sort of becoming, they've put a lot of effort into the 5396, and what they're doing is they've got a variety of dials. They've got dials with Arabics on it, dials without Arabics, and they've brought out a new blue dial version. So that just shows you that Patek is putting a lot of effort in that piece there to be the annual calendar, the go-to annual calendar, which is quite interesting, because that's a lovely watch. And I remember when the 5396 came out, it's always been a superb piece. So it's just interesting to see them refine it. They haven't done the same thing for the 5146, which is the annual calendar, which was the natural carry-on from the 5035. They haven't, 5035, 5036, 5146, that's sort of the pattern there. So it's very, very interesting what's happened there. The other thing Patek has done, which is really quite clever, now you're not gonna, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to say. I haven't shaven yet. I've been studying the Razzle Dazzle Basel World releases all night. That's why I'm just in the park, a bit of de-stressing, and I gotta tell you what is utterly amazing is the fact that Patek, that beautiful conservative Nautilus blue, well, it's now on the Aquanaut. It's now on a few other pieces, including the 5396. So they've got this. It's really, actually, the blue it goes back to the Ellipse days. That was one of the big things I loved about the Ellipse, was the fact that it actually had this beautiful blue dial that came out in the late 60s when they released the Ellipse. The Ellipse has sort of become a bit of a, it'll come back in fashion, I'm sure it will, but it was, the proportions were absolute perfect. It was the perfect dress watch. And, obviously that's not the way the watch market has moved. But the interesting thing is that blue went into the Nautilus, and now it's in the Aquanaut. So, I mean, you've got a very conservative blue Aquanaut. Ooh, I don't know what to say. Indeed. It's interesting. It's a very, very interesting thing. Patek Philippe has got so they've done a few things there. That Aquanaut with the blue is probably the most standout thing, which, to be honest with you, it goes to show you that the watch market isn't doing well. If they change a dial color, I mean, how much does a dial color change to do? And it's sort of a cheapy release, isn't it? I mean, you think about it, it's like having a limited edition color car. Well, they've already got the tooling for the car. If they make a limited edition special color, how rare or special is that? It's not really that special. So this is what's kind of happening there. They're doing a lot of cheap releases. And I tell you what Omega, let's look at Omega. Omega's got the big blue. And, Omega, they've gone back in their history books, which is often a good place to go. Look back on classic designs that worked and reinvigorate them. And they've done that with, they re-released the Mark II, which I thought was a fabulous piece of kit. It was never that successful. That was supposed to be the watch that replaced the Speedmaster, the man on the moon. And it only lasted a couple years, and then they killed it. So, that's obviously done for commercial reasons. And it's a bit like the Porsche 928, which was supposed to kill the 911. Didn't quite happen there. I tell you what, so Omega's got some interesting releases. They've gone back in the history books, and they've done a few interesting things there, which I gotta say, the problem with Omega is they're releasing far too much stuff. Far too much, Far too much variations, far too much. They're kind of becoming very much like Panerai. Everything's limited edition. Everything's, you know, it's kind of, it loses its bang. It loses its bang and its sizzle. One thing I got to tell you, a brand that I was actually quite impressed with, and I don't know if I should say this on the channel, Oris. And Oris has done, they've done something really interesting. And what they've done is they've actually released, listen to this, Oris has released a release of the first Oris chronograph. And it's a single, it's like a stopwatch chronograph. It's very, how would you put it? Very retro, very 70s, and everything retro comes back in again. And, you know, it was a very dated sort of piece, but that kind of fashion is funky again. It's back in again, 70s style. I mean, Tudor did it with the Monte Carlo from the 70s. Tudor did it with the Black Bay. They re-released the Black Bays. You know, that's a very much a heritage type of edition. So I gotta say, you know, that's probably, out of all the releases there, that Oris, which, you know, Oris is at a certain price point. They're kind of, you know, they're a Swiss brand. I don't know if you'd say luxury Swiss brand, but they're a Swiss brand. And that's quite an interesting release from Baselworld there. I'm going to be covering Baselworld in big detail. Yes, I am. I've got a staff reporter. Descartes has gone to Switzerland for me. He's gone over there. He's going to be sending in photos and sending some releases from Baselworld. I've got quite a few reports to post today on the releases from the different brands. We'll have a look at some of the pieces they've done. And what do I think there? What do I say? Well, I don't buy new. You know, it takes, you know, this is why I'm very cynical, is that I buy on the used market. So this is really for newish buyers. So newish buyers, you're paying a big premium, and then what the fuck happens? So very interesting developments on the Archie Luxury channel. Stay tuned. Razzle Dazzle Basel World 2017, fuckers.
We specialize here in pre-owned Rolex watches. Rolex watch is a very special timepiece, and we always do the servicing exactly as factory specifications. We buy a pre-owned piece and we put it into brand new condition. We have Rolex certified technicians working on that. We completely disassemble the piece. We adjust and polish and change every single part of the watch.
You have to have certified watchmakers that know what they're doing. If you have an expensive car, you're just not going to bring it to any mechanic that doesn't know what they're doing.
You spend $5,000, it's like if you put money in the safe deposit box. And 1 or 2 years from now, you will keep having your $5,000. We have to spend a lot of money to get all this equipment together, but makes me feel I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. It's not a question of money, it's my passion.
Jewelers on time, simply the best.